Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Frederick, you know me as Keanomy, and today we are doing something a little bit different. We're back in Sweet Transit, but we are not actually continuing with our playthrough as we have done before, I guess. So what we're going to do today instead is that we are going to take a look at blueprints. I've received a few questions on how blueprints works, how you use them, and so on. So the plan today is to clarify all of that and give you a little bit extra as well, because I like to spoil you guys a little bit, give you a little bit more than what you were asking for. So that's the plan for today. If you are interested in seeing a playthrough of the game in general, there is a multitude of videos on my channel that you can take a look at, so feel free to hit that subscribe button and you will be informed once I release the next few episodes. Anyways, let's get going. So the first part of this video will be just the absolute basics. So we will go through and we will show, okay, how do we copy a blueprint, how do we paste a blueprint, and so on. And then we'll ramp it up there. We'll give you a little bit of an intermediate idea of how to save blueprints. And at the very end of this video, I would like to go through and show you a little bit more of an advanced blueprint situation where we use mods and actually create our own mod to maintain our blueprints and how to update said blueprints as well. So stay tuned, we're gonna go through all of these three things in this video. So let's get going. Okay, so working with blueprints, there is something very simple that we can do. And first off, we have our three basic blueprints. So we have our normal three-way intersection. I'm gonna turn up the light a little bit here so you can see what I'm doing as well. So we have our normal three-way intersection. We have our four-way intersection with a little bit of a roundabout in the middle as well. And then we have our basic station. That you can place down. So those are already in the game when you start it up. Those are the three different options that you have available to you. If you want to add anything to that, we can of course take a normal copy of something. So in the game we have a few different options. If you open up your logistics panel, so let's take a look at the actual blueprint button. So blueprint mode, you can replicate already built rails, signals and stations. Press Ctrl C to copy the clipboard or Ctrl V to paste. So if we would like to say that we didn't actually have this one blueprinted since before, we could actually copy it by making a box around it, hitting Ctrl C, and then go over to where we need it. Once we have found where we need the blueprint, we click on the logistics panel again, and we click on the blueprint mode. And you'll get into this view again. Here we can hit Ctrl V and it will pop up the copied blueprint that we had from before. So we can place that down. I'm not gonna do it because it's gonna irritate me, but we can place it down wherever we want, how many times we want as well. So no limitations there. Everything there seems to be quite alright. Say now that we would like to copy that. We had our three-way intersection as well, so we need that one to be copied over here as well. So we hit Ctrl C there and then we go over here, we open our logistics panel, we click on the blueprint mode again, and we hit Ctrl V and we have that one. Problem now is that if I want to again place one of our four-way station, I need to again go copy this one and so on. So the idea behind the blueprint is, of course, that we want to save as many as possible. That's why we have the different options that we have in the menus. How do we actually accomplish this then? Well, there is a few different ways that we can save our blueprints. So there is, of course, the most basic way. If you're interested in this and a little bit more of a good tutorial, maybe. JD Plays actually did a really good job explaining how basic a basic setup for Blueprint works. So every time when you are copying a string, or when you copy a blueprint, so you hit Ctrl+C. So if we then take a look at our blueprint string here. So here we are in a text editor outside of the game. So this is Notepad++, but of course, if you want to, you can also use a normal Notepad. And if we go ahead and we copy paste this string that we had since before, when we copied it within the game, we'll get a bunch of letters. So this is what we call our blueprint string. This is the text that you need to be able to both share blueprints as well as use them in the future again. You can of course right click and go paste as well. Same thing, doesn't do much of a difference there. And then we can simply in the Notepad just name it whatever we want. So 4-way intersection. Whenever you want to use it again, you can open up your Notepad and you can paste it into the game again. So that's a very simple way of dealing with blueprints if you don't really want to go in depth and maybe build your own blueprint or make some changes to the actual game files. So how do we go ahead and actually get our own blueprints down here then? Well, with that we are moving further on into the intermediate part of this little tutorial that we're going through here. So before we start our look into how to use these blueprints, there's a few things that I would like to share with you before we begin here. So first off, when you are working with blueprints, there's a few things that it's really important that we remember. First off, blueprints will exclude anything that you are not at the moment able to build. This means that if you have a blueprint with a stone bridge, for example, and you are not able to actually build a stone bridge today, that means that you are able to use that blueprint, but it will not include the bridge itself until you have been able to actually build that bridge. So that's something that's good to keep in mind. Another thing to remember is that at the moment there is, of course, a early access situation. So the game itself is not complete and it's being continuously developed by the developers. So there might be some bugs with this, you might run into some issues and so on, but hopefully it should be fairly smooth sailing if you follow this video. And the third thing that I want to point out is that even though this might seem a little bit complicated, it is a temporary solution. The developers is looking into other options on how to include blueprints and blueprint books in a better way. Last I spoke to the developers, I got a confirmation that they will be looking to implement a better solution by Q1 in 2023. So hopefully by next year, early next year, we should have a simpler solution to what I will show you today. Let's just jump into it, will we? Okay, so in regards to a little bit more of an intermediate way of including your own blueprints in the game itself, could be to maybe edit these buttons. So instead of having the 3 blueprints that we have right here, there might be that in our wisdom we have actually saved up a few blueprints that we would like to use. Maybe we have a really fancy roundabout that we would like to use, for example. Or maybe we have some stations that we could use instead. And we would prefer maybe to have our own 4-way intersection our own station, as well as maybe our own three-way intersection. There is actually a way to do this. It is a little bit more complicated, but I will try to walk you through it in this video, and hopefully at least a few of you will be able to follow along here. It does require you to actually edit the game files a little bit. It's nothing hard, and it's likely not going to break anything for you. So let's jump out of the game and let's jump into Windows and see what we can accomplish there. Okay, so here we are in our Windows installation folder for Sweet Transit. There's a few different ways that you can get to this folder. Either you can just navigate yourself, so it's usually under Program Files in the Steam Apps Common, but the most simplest way to find it is just to go to your Steam installation or your Steam program, find Sweet Transit, and then you click on Manage. Go to Properties, go to Local Files, and here you will be able to browse the local files that you have on the game. So you just click on Browse. So it will automatically bring you to the Sweet Transit game files. So that is probably the easiest way. Just go through your Steam installation, go to Sweet Transit, Properties, Local Files, click on Browse. So from here we need to find the define files, as we call them. So we will start by going to Data, we will go to Base, and we will go into what it says Definitions. This is where we are able to edit different things about the game itself. All of these do something about the game. So you have, for example, city names. It will display all of the names of the cities that you can get, the randomly generated ones, and so on. So everything here does have a purpose. Do not delete anything. Do not click anything unless you know what you're doing. What we're interested in today is, of course, to edit the blueprints in the base game. So if we go to the blueprint one, we have a few different options. So we need to find a text manager to edit this in. So we will open up our text manager here. So there is a few different ways you can do this. Either you can open the blueprint in, I don't know if you have a Notepad++ maybe. If you don't have that, you can of course also open the game or open the files in a normal Notepad. Why do I not have open with? There we go. So you can of course use normal Notepad. Works the same, looks more or less the same. I just prefer the Notepad++, but do know that if you don't have that, works perfectly fine to just open it in any text editor that you have available on your machine right now. So when we open the blueprints.define, we'll get this section. It looks a little bit intimidating if you are not aware of computer syntax or programming syntax since before, and maybe you haven't really been dabbling very much with the different settings that we have available in games. Okay, so say now then that we have been playing the game for a little bit. We've been saving our favorite blueprints for a few weeks, and it kinda gets to the point where we are having too many blueprints. It's starting to get hard to keep track of everything. It's easy to paste over them. It's easy to mistake them for something else and so on. So we're looking for something a little bit more concrete that we can use. But we're maybe not using that many blueprints after all. Maybe we're just using the 3 ones in the normal base game. So we have a 3-way station or a 3-way intersection, we have a 4-way intersection, and we have a normal base station that we're using. And then we're editing a little bit in between that, of course. So what we can do then is, of course, to, as we mentioned, we can actually change the in-game blueprints. And the way that we do that is in the blueprints.define that we found before in the actual game files. So the game files, we had blueprint, and we had a blueprint that was named blueprints.define, or a file that was named blueprints.define. You will not see .define, but if you look at the type, you will see that it's a define file. So when we opened that one up, we saw a bunch of different codes, I guess we can call them. I'm not going to go through super deep right now on how this works. That will be a little bit more in the advanced one. What we will take notice of here is this string. So if we turn on word wrap here, you will see that we have a long string here of different characters. It looks fairly similar to what we've seen before, right? So if we compare to our own different strings, these are of course shorter, but follow more or less the same template. There is a lot of different garbage that we're looking at here. So if we want to just edit the 3 ones that we have since before, all we need to do is change these strings. And it's not much harder than to just change it and simply save. It's actually that easy. So if we want to change the first one, so they come in the order from left to right in the game. So the top one is your first blueprint. The next one is your second blueprint. And the third one is, of course, the last blueprint with a little B on it in game. So if we want to change the first blueprint, if you don't remember, it's the 3-way intersection. And we just simply take our 3-way intersection. And we go into here and we simply delete whatever was there and we paste in our own. Here is something that's very, very, very important. If you take a look at the standard setup, there is a clamor right here. It's very important that you don't remove that. If you do that, you will get into issues. So we just want to delete the code. And then we want to paste in our new one. And then we would like to add a semi-comma, or what you want to call it. So this character that you have right here, I think it's called a semi-comma. I'm not sure. I'm not native. Don't hate on me. Come on. So yeah, you just change that around and that will get you to have a functioning blueprint. We can do the same for our 4-way blueprint. So maybe we want to have the same one again. We can copy or we can delete this code. We paste in our own. Doesn't matter that it's longer than the one that was there before. And we add our semi-comma or semicolon-ish thing at the end. Make sure that you are using the right one. If you're unsure, you can always copy the old one or just make sure that you don't delete it. So when you delete the last one, you can leave the last little squiggly lines and it will make sure that you have it already there when you paste in the next one. So let's add a station as well. So we have... So there we have a station added as well. As mentioned, some of these blueprints that you're using is probably going to be a lot bigger than the one that you have in the base game. The size of the print itself doesn't really matter. It is okay either way. And from here, we simply save the file. So either save and just write over the file that you already have there. It should not matter at all if you miss any of this. The only thing you need to do to reset your game to the previous state is just to validate your game files in Steam. Should be no issues at all. But do this on your own risk anyway. I will not take responsibility for you breaking your game. Unfortunately. So yes, once we have saved this, we can simply shut down this and head over into the game again. And here we are back in game again. We have just started up the game. Nothing so far is going to show that you have done anything to the game. However, if we go into our logistic panels that we had before and we take a look at these intersections, you will see that they cost a little bit differently now. They're a lot more expensive. This is, of course, because we changed them. So if you use one of these blueprints now, you will see that you have different blueprints available. These are the blueprints that we added before, right? So that way you can, of course, add 3 blueprints to your game without changing anything substantially. This is probably one of the easiest way to get convenient blueprints in the game after you feel like you have used the current ones as much as you can, so to say. You do kind of grow out of those eventually, and you just need to start using your own blueprints. This, I would say, is probably the easiest way to start doing that. Of course, when we are talking about editing any game files, there is a few things that we need to keep in mind. Anytime the game updates, there is a real risk and probably a large probability that you will see these actually update, especially if they change these blueprints in any update. It will likely overwrite your old ones. So keep that in mind. If you are using this method, make sure that you are actually saving your blueprint in some other way as well. Keep a notepad somewhere that is not editing the game files themselves. That way you can just redo this if you notice that the game has updated and your blueprints are no longer available. Another way to make sure that you have your own blueprints available, but also that the game will not actually overwrite them for you, is to add the blueprint as a mod. So this is when we're getting into the little bit more advanced part of the tutorial here. So if you feel like this is enough for you and you don't have any interest in dabbling a little bit deeper with game files and actually building your own mod to perform this, I suggest that you leave it here, and maybe at a later date you feel like you want to come back, you can come back to this video. Everything will be available for you at that point as well, and you can at that point take it further on and see if it's something that you want to dig into and take a look at. So if we are then discussing different options in how to include mods in our game, there is of course the very easy way: use someone else's. So go to the Steam workshop, find a mod that you enjoy and simply use someone else's. That's probably the absolute easiest way. I should probably have started with that one, right? That's more basic than what we just did. But anyway, what we can do, of course, is to make our own mod as well. I have already started a Google Drive where you will be able to download a template mod that you will simply have to paste into your game folder, and all of the mods that I'm using in my game will be available for you in your game as well. You can, of course, also jump into the workshop and you can pick up my mods in the workshop as well. I will leave a link both to the workshop of my blueprints, and I will also leave a link, of course, to the Google Drive folder that we keep the manual files for the mod itself. If you want to edit the mod yourself, I would suggest that you create the mod through the manual files. That way you make sure that if the mod is updated by the mod owner, for example, it won't replace your current situation. But if you're just looking to use someone else's work, then I would say that going to the workshop is a good option. So we're gonna have to jump out of the game here and go into the game files again. And this one is gonna be a little bit more complicated, so bear with me. Okay, so now that we have been able to leave the game, we need to open up our internet browser and we need to navigate to the URL that you have in the description of this video, where you will find a Google Drive link to the blueprints that we need and the mod for the blueprints that we need. You will also find an instruction for how to actually follow along and how to work with the mod itself. Should be self-explanatory, and there is a lot of comments within the mod itself as well. So I do hope that it should help you quite well. We don't need to download the instructions, they're just there for you to be able to follow along and do it at home as well. And what we do need is the blueprint.zip. So if you right click and you click download, for example, it will download the file. I have already downloaded it, of course, or I already had it available to me. So here are the two files. You can, of course, download the instructions if you want it available on your computer as well. It is not necessary. Here you can also find another way on how to find the sweet transit location that we need on your hard drive. We will leave that as it is, and we will take a look at the blueprints file that we have right here. So we're gonna need to, again, just like I showed you before, you're gonna have to find the sweet transit game files. Open them next to each other here, and you will have to go into your data folder. In your data folder, you will have a base file. In the data folder, you wanna paste your blueprint mod. And you want to extract it right there. Once you've done that, you can delete the zip file. And in the blueprints folder, you will then find a few different folders and a few different files. Majority of this is enough that you can run it right now. You don't actually have to do anything about this. The game will start up right now. So if we go and we start Sweet Transit. And now that we have extracted all of those files and we open up the game, we will see that we already have our mod available to us here. So you will have a template mod. It should be activated already. If it's not, you just need to click on the button that says activate or enable, it says. So if you hover over the mod itself, you will be able to enable the mod. It might tell you that you need to restart. Just restart your game, fire it up again, and everything should be working as intended. Since I already have it enabled, it won't prompt me to actually enable it as well. So yeah, that's the basics of how to get this up and running and get all of my mods available to you. So if you now jump into your game, you will see that you have all of your mods available to you. And if you followed along with the previous section that we did, where we changed the in-game mods, you will also see that those retains their values as well. So you can kind of combine these two if you want to, and you can use both files, or you can just update the mod itself with the new files that you want to use. So now we have 5 extra ones that we can use. We have our normal 3-way, we have an updated 4-way, that's a lot better than the one we had before. So this one that we are using since before does not actually have the 4 incoming lanes as we have intended. So that one was kind of a fail, that's why I used it in the previous one and why it is fixed in the actual mod that I'm sharing with you guys. And then we have a few stations as well. Nothing too fancy there. And of course we have our warehouse station as well, which probably isn't the best one. Probably isn't good at all, but it's something to start with. So if you feel like you want to use it, feel free to do that. So that's sort of the basic. If you just want to get into the game and have a little bit more of the blueprints available to you, this is one way that you can make that happen. But then again, I promised you that I will show you how to actually maintain your own mod as well, so that you can update these buttons, you can add new buttons, you can make different buttons, you can of course update the ones that we have here with different templates that you've made yourself as well. So let's jump out of the game, go back to the game files, and let's see if we can show ourselves how to do that as well. So here we are back at the games files that we had before. So When you open it from Steam, as we showed earlier, you will get to this one. We go into data, and this is where we pasted our blueprint. So, or not pasted, extracted our blueprint file. So we have our blueprints folder and we have our base folder. So this is the base game files more or less, and then we have our mod. In this blueprints folder, we have 4 different files that we are able to edit to our heart's content. So if we start by taking a look at the header file, we have already that one open. I do not have it open. I'm sitting here saying stuff that I don't actually do. So if we take a look at header file, it is super simple. All this does is give your mod a name. Some way that you can address the mod itself in the other files that we will take a look at here next. So in this case, it will be called template mod. If you want to change it, there's one thing to keep in mind. Make sure that you are not using any spaces here. If you want to have a space, it's better that you use a dash. So template dash mod works fine. Template mod works fine. Template space mod, not very good. Leave out any spaces in this name. If you are not going to host the mod itself, or you just want to have a mod for yourself in general, you of course don't have to change the name. You can leave it at template mod. Does not matter at all. It might even be the easiest way, unless you want to be a little bit fancy. So that's all we have to do with the header.txt. There's really nothing else that we need to do here. We can just leave that one. Okay, so when we have updated the header file and we've added our mod's name, or we left it as it was, we need to continue and get into our definitions. Here we have 2 more files out of the 4 ones that we're going to edit. What we are going to look into right now is the actual blueprints one, and this is something that you probably will find quite familiar. So if we take a look at that one, it will look like this. Let's make it a little bit bigger here so we can see what we're working with. So if we take a look at this, you can see that in each of these files, you will see at the very top of them, there will be a description of the file itself, what it does, what we change by editing the file. And there will also be maybe a little bit of kind of generic information of different functionalities in the file, just to tease your brain a little bit. So when it comes to the blueprints file, it is very similar to the one that we saw in the base game. So what do we need to do now? Well, in the file that we just opened for blueprints, we need to do nothing. If you are just using the file, as mentioned, there is nothing that we need to do. However, if we would like to edit one of these, it works the same. So if we have the code right here, I will add wrapping to this. If we take the code that we have right here, again, super important, remember that we need to end everything with these 2 small icons. If we were to want to change one of our templates that we had in the game, this is the code that we would be editing, just like we did before in the earlier section. If we would like to add another button or another blueprint, we can simply copy the last one that we have right here. And you can paste that in below everything else. And that will create a new button for you. Something that we need to keep in mind if we are adding buttons to this is of course where we want the button to be placed. So do we want it to be on the first row? Do we want it to be on the second row? Or do we want it to be on the third row? And so on. So when it comes to the sorting, we actually have everything explained to us in the first definitions. So even though this looks a little bit different, it is actually the same as this. The only difference is that here we have a description for what types does. You can see we have type here. We have a description for what the name means, and so on. So this is just for you to have a little bit of an easier time understanding what you need to change in your mod if you want to add something to it, or you want to change the strings themselves from the ones that I'm using. So first off, we of course have the type. We're working with blueprints. There's nothing that we need to change here. Just leave it as it is. That applies for all of the ones that we're copying extra as well. Next up we have the name. So what do we want to name this specific blueprint? This applies the same logic as we had for the previous header file. We don't want to use any spaces. Dashes is okay. If you want to just type it all in one letter, that works as well. No spaces is the only one we need to keep in mind. Second one is the path to the in-game icon that we're using. So you remember in the game we have 3 different icons. We have a 4-way, we have a 3-way, and we have a normal blueprint icon. So I have left all of them right here. So if you want to change the icon itself on any of these, maybe you want the 3-way to look like a normal blueprint icon, you can simply take this and replace this string with it. Keeping in mind that you either have to add a little semicolon, or you need to paste it in front of it. Either one works. As long as it's there, everything is fine. Yes, so if you want to change icon, that's where you do it. You have the base icons in the game. There's also possibility to include custom icons. I will not go through that right here. It will take forever. Please do join the Discord, however, if you are interested in how to make your own custom icons and add them to the game, because there is possibility to do that. And if you do join the Discord, I'm sure you will find like-minded people that is also interested in how to, and know, more importantly, are aware how to actually do it. If we continue down the list, we have sort ID. This decides the horizontal position in the UI, so whether it's on the first spot from the left, second spot from the left, third spot, and so on in the UI of the build menu. Do keep in mind that it centers to the left, so you cannot put something in the second spot if you don't have anything in the first spot. And the last up, we have the vertical position. So this means where do we actually place it in each row. So do we want it on the 4th row? Do we want it on the 5th row, 6th row, and so on? We continue down the list. So that is more or less that. Again, if we want to change any of these, we can just swap out the code itself to whatever we want. And any of these can be edited according to how you prefer it. If you need to add new blueprints, you can of course copy and paste the last one as many times as you want. Keep in mind that you will have to change the sorting ID and the sorting section to suit your needs as well. Together with the name, of course. Each of these blueprints needs to have a separate name. It cannot retain the same name. So warehouse no bridges, that will not work. We need to actually change this one if we want to keep it. Okay, so that was the blueprints.define. We know how to deal with that one now. We will close that one down as well. I will not save anything because I don't want to mess anything up. So we should then be in our blueprints folder again. And the next file that we have available to us is game rules, but we will take a look at that one just a little bit later. We will instead go back and we will take a look at the folder that says localization. If we take a look at the file that's called Econovember, we see a little bit more information. This is more or less the visuals of your mod. So this is where you specify how the game will show in the in-game menu. And also, if you were to upload the mod to the workshop, this is where you would specify the name of the mod. So right now the mod itself is called template mod, and the mod description just says blueprints template created by yours truly. And then we make a little bit of a shameless plug here as well, of course. Second part of this localization is to give all of your blueprints that you have specified. You will need to give them in-game names as well, because the blueprint themselves will not actually take on the name in-game of the blueprint in the files themselves. You will have to specify that in the localization folder. And the way you do that is simply to take the name from the blueprint.define, and you write the name that you want, making sure to end with the specific one. The symbol that we have right here, a semicolon. And we've gone through the majority of this, and I just realized that they're called semicolons. Sorry about that. I hope you have really had your ears bleed throughout this. We will continue with semicolon going forward. So yes, every time you end a row in your kind of code, you need to make sure that you have a semicolon. No exceptions to that anywhere in any of these files. So to add something, say that we have added something to the blueprints.define, we take the name of that blueprint that we added. So we added an example blueprint, for example, and then we add that to how we want it to look like in game when we use the blueprint. So we might want to have it say example blueprint with a space in between. This is where you are allowed to use spaces in the second name. First name should not have any spaces. Second one is okay to use spaces. Do keep in mind that any blueprint that you add, you have to include under these entities as well. Otherwise, they will not load in the game. You will not be able to get it to work. Of course, other than that, you can change the description. This is the description that will show in the warehouse or the workshop as well as the templates. The mod's name, of course, can also be adjusted here. Other than that, there is nothing else that we need to do here. So make sure you use your semicolons and make sure that you are adding anything that you have added since before. So we go back to our games folder again, and we are taking a look at the very last file that we have available to us and that we need to edit. So we have the game rules. This is another one of the necessary files that we need to edit anytime we're adding another blueprint to our blueprint book. This file will define when your blueprint is available in the game. So as you know, as you continue playing, different entities, different items, different buildings become available to you as you continue playing. We can do the same with our blueprints. So for me, for example, I have a few blueprints that only unlocks once we have reached a place where we can build a quarry. So the quarry has been unlocked. That means also that bridges are available. At that point, I make my blueprint available that contains bridges available in the game as well. So, you know, we mentioned earlier that if you are working with blueprints that has a bridge in it and you haven't actually unlocked the bridge, it will still allow you to use that blueprint. It just won't actually give you the bridge itself. It will just leave a gap. This is how you can avoid that, so that you don't have any blueprints showing up with a bridge before you are actually able to build the bridges. And there is two different sections for it. So we have one that is for non-bridge, and we have one where we add all of our blueprints that do have bridges. Do keep in mind again, anything that you add to the blueprints.define file, you will have to add to this one as well in one of these sections. Otherwise it will not work. Another thing to keep in mind is that all of the names that we're providing here is not the visible names in the game. It is the names that we have specified in the blueprints.define file. All of the names that we are referring to within the mod itself will be the ones that we have defined in blueprints.define. Once we've done that, anything else is not necessary to be adjusted. So if we close that down, we have done everything that we need to do when it comes to that. I do want to point out, however, even though we went through this in a very strict order and we made sure that we don't go through the wrong files in the wrong order, there is actually no right order. You can do this in any order you want. I just find it easiest to start with the blueprints one and then do the ones that rely on blueprints as well. You can of course open game files, add your name and then add the same to blueprints. That works fine as well. In which order you do it doesn't really matter, it's just easier if you start with the blueprints one. At least you have defined a name at that point. So if you have already actually opened up your files and you have made some changes, there's 3 different places to recap. We need 3 different files to be edited every time you're adding a blueprint to anything here. So first off, we of course add a blueprint to the blueprints.define. We go through and we copy one of the definitions. We add a new definition. Make sure that we have the sorting ID, sorting section updated to reflect where we want it to be. And we paste our new blueprint code into the correct section as well, making sure that we have semicolons where they are needed. Once we've done that, we need to go into our en localization file and we need to define how the blueprint is going to look like in game when we are hovering over it. Once we've done that, we also need to specify when we want the blueprint to unlock, when it's going to be available to the player. And once we've done that, the blueprint should be available for you to use in-game. And with 4 files, we have been able to add as many blueprints to get to the game as you would like to have. So if you would like to have even more blueprints, you can of course have that. You can have massive amounts of blueprints. So just continue copy pasting as much as you want. Make sure that you are updating the names so you don't have the same name. The game will give you errors that explain quite well what you have done wrong. So hopefully you should be able to avoid any issues going forward. So throughout all of these files you will find comments on what you should edit and how you should edit and what it does, so that you can fairly easily maintain your own mod going forward. And a special shout out goes out to Firecube on the Steam workshop as well, who released a mod that's called Blueprints for All, which I have been using as a guide myself while teaching myself in regards to all of these modding and different templates and files that are needed for these kind of changes to the game. So I'll leave his mod down in the description as well if you are interested in a little bit more well-designed blueprints, I would say. Please go have a look at his mods that he has created. So there you have it. 3 different ways that you can deal with your blueprints. Hopefully there is one of them that you did enjoy. If you have any questions, you are of course more than welcome to leave them down in the comment section below. I do read close to every single comment that comes in on my channel. That's a lie. I read every single comment. Every single one of them. I really do enjoy seeing your comments. So please let me know down below how it went. Were you able to set up your mod? Did you feel like it was enough for you to just add 3 mods or the 3 blueprints that we already had in the game? Let me know down in the comments below. If this helped you, then hit that like button. If you really didn't like it at all, then I don't know, tell your friends about it, I guess. Share this video with them. They might also need a joke or a laugh. So, thank you. I do appreciate you being here. And until next time, bye bye everyone.